Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this call. I apologize for the technical glitch there in the beginning. It was on my end. And it helps if you're going to organize the webinar to actually start the webinar so people can get in. So my apologies. So my name is Tony Vernese. I'm the president of the Aerospace Industry Association of Michigan, and we are going to kind of unpack a couple things today and talk about them. A lot of information, short amount of time to go through it. So I'm going to move quickly. What I will tell you is a little bit different than what we've done before is we need your input on some information that we're going to provide today. A couple of things, efforts that we've been working on, and we're going to have some poll questions. So this is a little different. Hopefully my technical skills work a little better on running the polls than I did starting this webinar. But anyways, we want to get your input on some things we've been working on. There is a Q&A panel, and time permitting, we'll get to some questions. So if you have questions along the way that you see with anything that's presented, please submit those questions, and we will do our very best to try to get to some of those before we sign off. So just the agenda for today is just going to give you a quick overview because we do have members and non-members on the call today. So just a quick overview on our organization. Then we're going to talk about a virtual event solution that we've been working on for the last couple of months. Everybody is locked down. There's no trade shows. We aren't able to have live events, which was a lot of what we had been doing for the last couple of years. And everybody has got all kinds of Zoom solutions in different ways. We think we've got something a little bit different, and so we're going to share that with you today. We've also recently updated our website. Even through the middle of COVID, we started this actually before COVID, making some improvements to the website, and we decided to still continue with that project, and we actually launched the new website in June. I'm going to show you a searchable database feature is one of the nice things that we've added to that website. Also, prior to COVID, all of our members, everybody you talk to was struggling to find talent. We've got a couple of projects underway that are about to launch, or be completed actually, that we think is going to be a good solution for some of the talent situation. We're trying to leverage the huge amount of traffic that we get to our website for the benefit of our members. And so I'll show you a project that we're working on with Grand Valley State University. And then the other thing is when we do have live events, as the person that often stands in front of the room, I see people come in, we've got 100 or 150 people in the room, and just kind of watching, I don't see everybody naturally, getting up and having conversations and meeting that new person. That's not natural. It's not for me, and I know it's not for a lot of people. So we want to try to offer some training, and especially right now with the virtual situation that we're all living in, how do you network when you can't get out face to face? So we've got a little something we've been working on there that I think you'll find interesting. And then at the end, Kevin Michaels on our board is going to present some information that he and his team have been working on with regard to the aerospace industry, the impact, what's it look like, and what are some of the forecast and what do people feel that how the industry is going to come out of this. So I'm going to move quick. We've only got till 1 o'clock. I want to be respectful of your time. So the next slide here, this is just a quick shot of who we are. If you've been with us before, you've seen this slide several times. If you're new today, just want you to know that this organization is run by the board of directors. These aren't just logos that you see on this slide. These individuals are very active in the business, in the strategy, and understand the industry very, very well. Collectively, there's a lot of experience packed in with this board. So we're very fortunate to have a board like this to help us out. If you're not familiar with the aerospace industry in Michigan, it's big, and it's a real big deal. And our effort is to try to help this from not being Michigan's best kept secret. Today, our database has almost 1,000 companies that are in the industry across the state, from in the UP, some wonderful companies, just amazing technology, down to Jackson, over to Grand Rapids, and over to Roseville. It's a very big industry, has been here for over 75 years. It's nothing new. And so we're doing our best to wake up that sleeping giant and help connect the community here so that people learn and can do business with each other. This just kind of gives you an overview. I mean, at a high level, the industry really represents the whole ecosystem, whether it's from the R&D to prototype and pre-production, through the production phase, and then aftermarket service and support. It's all here, and it's a great industry. And obviously because of COVID, like any other industry, there's been some challenges with it, but it's not going away. We know that we're gonna poke our head through this storm, and we'll be stronger as a result of it. That's what Michigan does, right? I mean, we've been very resilient with an automotive industry that's very cyclical and taking some hits, and this will get through too, and we'll be much stronger because of it. You'll hear from Kevin at the end of this presentation today, but he and his team helped us about a year ago. We actually went into that database of the 1,000 companies and did some research. And the industry, the companies that are doing business with OEMs and the tier ones, the bigger tier ones, just those companies out of the 1,000, there's almost 500 of those that are doing business directly with those companies. And it represents, this is pre-COVID, of course, but about 6.4 billion in revenue and close to 30,000 jobs. So again, it's very impactful, and it means a lot to the state here. So with that, I'm going to jump into some of the other things we want to talk about. So as I mentioned before, with COVID, this has made networking a real challenge, and we're all about trying to connect the business community so people can learn about each other and thrive and grow. Just like today, you're on another Zoom call, right? And countless ones since earlier this year. The solution that we've been working on, this isn't going to be another Zoom. We've seen a lot of different events that have taken their day-long event and just converted it to a virtual day-long event. We don't know if that's the most effective way of doing it. So we're looking at designing something. We've been working with a professional studio down in Detroit, and I'll share that with you now. This would actually be a studio. It's a high-tech, we would produce a show, essentially. The show would begin with a keynote speaker. We'd have some in-studio interviews. There's only going to be a limited number of spots on this first go-round, but for companies that want to participate, we'll have the keynote speaker, then we'll break to an interview where any of our member companies will be filmed. They'll be on screen. They can talk about their product, their technology, their company, their service they offer. And at the end of the day, when this event is over and it concludes, it's not a full day. We're looking at about a 3-hour event. This would then live on our website. So it's not a matter of one and done. We would retain this, record it, have it on our website. We'd be able to actually carve out the member's interview and provide that back to the member so they can then put that on their website. They can pass that along to prospective clients that they're working on. So it's a number of ways we'll push this out on our social media. Between our website and our social media channels, we get about 1,500 visits to those sites every month. So multiply that times a year, and what would that give, back to a company, especially under a lockdown where you can't get out to trade shows and you're trying to utilize your own platforms to get the word out, and doing it quite effectively in a lot of cases. But we want to use the traffic and the volume that we get to try to help bolster that and provide exposure for that. So the recorded session would be, you'd have about a 15-minute interview on screen. This would all be fully edited. So the recordings would take place in advance, professional crew and staff to help you through that. And then it would be, and we've seen their products. I mean, it would be a very well-run, very high-tech product that's going to be put out as a result of this. So you can have, it's up to you if you want to have some on-stage demonstrations or show your product or talk about that. We'll do commercial breaks for sponsors. Sponsors will have an opportunity to address the audience. So we really think this is going to be a unique solution to try to help companies It's not like, I hear everybody say they'll be glad when 2020 is over, and believe me, I will be too. But I don't think December 31st to January 1st is going to be anything magic. I think we're going to still be in this for a while. And actually, even when we get through COVID and life begins to get back to normal, we honestly believe that virtual solutions like the ones we're putting together could be a really good, viable tool even past COVID and once we've gotten through the other side of this storm. So with that, I'm going to try my best here to launch the poll, and we're going to put about 30 seconds on this. The questions you're going to be asked, and we'd really appreciate your feedback here, is, given the COVID restrictions, does this look like, and I know I've given you a lot of information quickly, but is this something that you feel that we should continue pursuing the path of developing this kind of a solution to offer out to our members? So with that, I'm going to launch the poll. You've got about 30 seconds. We're just going to kind of work through that. Just take a look at that. Whether you just totally disagree, this is not a good path to pursue. If you think this is something that could be useful and you could, you'd like us to continue exploring this and get more information, we obviously know pricing is important. And that's what we're working on right now, because we want to make sure that this is something that's affordable for everybody. There are 2 questions here. So the next question is this an effective marketing tool for you and your company? And if so, would this be something that your company would utilize some of the marketing dollars and make good use of this? So with that, we'll just let it go a couple more minutes, or not minutes, a couple more seconds here. And we're going to end the poll. Thank you very much for that. All right, so the next thing is our new website. There's some new features on the website. Quite frankly, we had stressed out our website, as a matter of fact. And so the use and the demands on our website exceeded what we imagined in the beginning. So we spent some time, worked with a very good web developer over in Grand Rapids to develop our new website for us. What I'm showing you here is one of the features, because if you go to the membership page of our website, you can see all the logos of every one of our member companies. If you click on that logo, it's a hot link back to their website. We also developed the downloadable membership directory. So if you don't want to click on every website, we realize that's not practical. You can download that directory. You can see each company's, their elevator pitch and what they're all about. So you can learn more about it. But this is something, and the example I've given here is into the database, and this is live and working on the website today. I simply typed in composites, and you can see the 3 companies that we have in our membership database that are involved in composites. And so this would work for any of our companies. What the next step is, though, is that we will be working with the Marketing Resource Group, our marketing firm in Lansing, on an effort to reach out to all of our members and talk about this. And they're going to ask you a few questions about, what are those keywords? When you want people to think of your company, what are some of the strategic capabilities and resources that you have available? And we're going to take those keywords then and load them into the database associated with your company, so that this would be a much more accurate way to search through the member database. Now, this is not the 1,000 companies. These are only the members of AIAM. So when that happens, we expect to roll that out soon, that outreach. Be on watch for that, and your timely response to that would be greatly appreciated. It's going to help the accuracy of how this performs to benefit your company. But if you want to see that, I've got our website down there. Go check it out, set up your login credentials so you can, get access to the database. And I think you'll find that it's going to be a really useful tool for people to find and learn about our members. Now, as I talked about in the beginning, every one of our companies, before COVID, were struggling to find the right talent. And as I mentioned, we get a lot of traffic to our website. We're looking at that as how can we use that to the benefit of our members. We wanted to put something in here for everybody, for job seekers when they're looking for that next opportunity. But also we wanted to find a way to present talent to the hiring managers that are struggling to find the right people to fill those open positions. We know this has probably slowed down a little bit because of COVID, but believe it or not, we actually still have a lot of members that are trying to hire today. We had our golf outing back in August, and our title sponsor, the Umber Group, Wally, asked the question during the after golf event and said, how many people are still trying to hire talent? And a lot of hands in the pavilion went up. And so it is still a challenge. So I'm going to get into that, a solution that we've been working on. Now, this graphic is probably not a good way. This is yours truly. This is my way of trying to graphically depict what we're doing. We've partnered with Grand Valley State University, their computer School of Computer Information and Computer Science department. They are developing a web scraping tool that will actually go out on the member websites. We'll scrape those websites, and any open positions that our members have listed on our website will pull into the job board on our website so that we can, again, try to leverage the traffic to our website to your advantage. And then as you fill those positions or take those positions down, if your need changes, when we perform the next scrape and we go out and scrape those websites, if the position has been taken off of your website, it'll be removed from our job board. So it's a bit, it's automatic. We're not having to maintain a database. And I'll show you this project. I've been thoroughly impressed with the team of students that Grand Valley has put on this project. It's not a fluffy project. The students, their grade depends on the success of this project. They're actually presenting to our board of directors on December the 9th, along with their dean of engineering. And so it has to work. And I've been thoroughly impressed with this. This is a screenshot of what they have put together. I've just got one example up here. The people that come to our website, they'll look at the job board, they'll be able to see what's there. They can sort it by job, they can sort it by location, they can sort it by company. And then off to the right that you can't quite see on this screenshot, there'll be a clickable link. So if they say, oh, JR Automation is looking for an applications engineer, they'll be able to click on that link. It's going to take them right back to the JR Automation website where they can find out more information on the job and actually then how to apply and be considered for the position. The next screen, just another example. Here we typed in RCO engineering, and there's a number of positions that RCO has open. And so the same thing, they can sort by the job type, they can sort by location, they can sort by company, or they can just look at the general list and scroll through it. But we're pretty excited about this, and we think it's going to be a great feature for our members. On the other side, hiring managers are always looking for the talent. So this first part you saw, that's about trying to drive the talent to your open positions. The hiring managers, they want to see some talent. We've got a couple of really good staffing companies that are members of the association, HRU and GTA, HRU in Lansing and GTA in Southfield. And so what we're working on with them is for them to provide us with not everybody they're working with, but just gives us some weekly highlights of some candidates that you're working with today. And this example on the right would be what you would see. We would post this on our website. We would update it each week with some new candidates, but you'd be able to see their skills, their functional experience, what their background is, where they're located. Are they interested in relocating? What some of their salary considerations would be. If you want this as contingent or flexible staffing, permanent staffing, because you're not looking for a temporary situation, you're looking to hire a permanent employee. So we think this is going to be really helpful for the hiring managers to get an idea. This will only be available to AIAM members. So you need to go in and create your login credentials so you'd be able to access information. But both of these organizations are equipped to provide shop floor talent and professional talent options. So it's up to you. If you wanted to, click on it and learn more and contact one of these companies to give more information on the candidate. But we think this is a nice solution that we'll be bringing to the website soon as well. So with that, the next item on our agenda is something I've been really thinking about for quite some time. Like I mentioned, I stand in the front of the room very often with our events that we've done. We've done almost 24 of them in the last couple of years. And we work really hard to bring an audience of people together, to help people make connections. There might be 100 or 150 people in the room, and I watch people come in. There might be 2 people from the same company. They come in, they sit down together, they talk together, they have their lunch, they listen to the speakers, and they leave. And I don't see them interacting with people. Or an individual comes in by themselves. They don't know anybody. Like I said, that's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable for me. It's not natural for everybody. There are some people, and you're going to meet one in just a second here, that will walk in a room and never meet a stranger. And you think, boy, if I could just take a little bit of that. So Kirk Armstrong is somebody that we have gotten to know through one of our board companies that has used Kirk extensively. It comes in on a regular basis to work with their staff on training their sales department, their sales team. And they've had great results as a result of this. Kirk has got 20 years of experience doing sales training, business development, strategic development. And I've been working with Kirk now for a little bit on developing this, what we think is going to be a really nice 3-part course that we will offer virtually, because we want to help you. This is something that I want you personally to get the most out of your involvement with AIAM. But this is something you'll be able to use everywhere you go, with other trade shows that you'll go to, in your day-to-day activities. We think this could be really useful. And so I'm going to turn it over to Kirk, and he'll tell you a little bit about the course that we're working on. And then we're going to have 3 poll questions at the end of this, because we want to get your feedback on whether you feel this would be useful for you and your team. So Kirk, it's all to you.
Well, fantastic. Can everybody hear me okay? Tony, can you hear me?
Gotcha. Thank you.
Hey, well done. If you want to just change the slide to the first slide, we'll just show you, this is where I am. I do own Armstrong Sales Coaching. And, we named it coaching rather than consulting because we wanted to let people know that, this is really, we think it's what people need. It's not just about training. It's about coaching. It's an interactive style of training with someone. When we do these types of seminars and events, we do them. This is my training center that I'm in right now. I'm in one of the offices off of this training center as we speak. Of course, you'll see that little quadrant in the right where most of the stuff we're doing right now is online, of course, fortunately or unfortunately. And, we get excited when we hear from, people like Tony, because, this is what we do. We really enjoy and looking at not just the training and the events that we put in, but, just watching the progress of people build confidence because they now know, maybe for the first time, even though they've been in their career for a long time, first time on how to network. So when Tony and I put this together, we decided let's put a 3-series, as he mentioned, a 3-series program together. And if you just want to show the first slide, Tony, this is essentially what we're doing. So what we want to do, and if you look at what we have messaging here, in session 1, we really just want to talk about how to build and attract new companies to yours. Okay, so often there's companies out there that we help, and we help people in the automotive and the aerospace industry and the medical device field and different military contracting companies, but we're helping them to try to develop their business. It starts with this first session where how do we attract people in? So some people are doing great with the companies that they're working with. They're doing very well, but they want to either meet a new vertical or they want to do more with companies they're currently not working with. So if you look at the bullet points, we're going to start with how do you find these companies, and then how do you attract them to your company? It could be through an outreach program, but it has to do with networking. Learning the right messaging to compel others to want to speak with you. As Tony mentioned, if you go to these events, sometimes we don't really know what to say. Maybe we don't know what to ask or how to essentially bring someone from what is a contact or maybe a friend or an acquaintance, and bring them into business without looking salesy, without being pushy, a consultative approach, if you will. If you look at the third bullet point, we also talk about using LinkedIn, which if you're not using LinkedIn right now, you probably should. It's more than just a glorified Facebook for business or a database. This really should be used, everybody, to try to attract people to your business, but also how do you use it as a proactive tool to get people to want to speak with you? There's a way to do it, but there's definitely some ways not to do it. And we'll be talking about that. And then the last bullet on the slide is just how to collaborate with others, using different platforms, not just LinkedIn, but other social medias. Should we use things like Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat? Not saying you should necessarily. We'll discover that together. But there's other things that you can do too to again, get people to want to speak with you and make it an easier conversation to have these collaborative relationships with. Okay, we can change slides, please, Tony. Okay, then we're going to get into session 2. How do you actually do this? How do you, yes, we might be not live like this photo suggests right now, but also, as Tony mentioned, someday we all will be live, I promise. And that's when we can utilize not just these soft skills, but turn them into real programs so that we can do business with people we want to work with. Instead of, if you've ever been to these events, it happens virtually too. You have a nice little hour together. You might have a nice conversation, but then nothing happens. You might meet a lot of people. You might bring a lot of business cards home, and then nothing happens. So we're going to talk about, what questions do we want to ask? What strategies and approaches does some of these sales elite use so that you can actually make that not just something you do on occasion, it's a strategy. Use networking, whether it's online or live, you're using it as a strategy to build your business, and you know exactly what to do in order to achieve that. We're going to talk about common mistakes. We're going to talk about things people do that you should never do, that we see all the time when I go to networking events. Tony sees people, as an example, we talked about this prior, maybe people standing together, all of the same company. Those things might be obvious, but why do we do it? Because it's comfortable. How to let that go and explore and meet other people. It's not even though we're adults, it's not easy, everybody. So we're going to expose some things and make you aware of some mistakes you should never do that might be costing you. And then how to develop business from a list. So let's say you have a list of 50 people from a group or an association or a membership listing of another kind. How do you utilize that list without looking pushy and look like you're trying to close your friends? And we're going to talk about that. And then session 3 finally is, boy, we did a great job networking, whether it's online like this photo or live. We've done a great job bonding with some people or meeting some different people we've never met before. And then how do you make the phone call? How do you make the call so you don't use phrases like, we're going to teach you not to say things like, if you're using any of these as an example group, just to give you a snapshot, we're going to tell you to eliminate them immediately when you say things like, hey, I'm just reaching out. I'm just touching base. I'm just following up. I mean, if you're using those things, we're going to say no, because that's what everybody's doing on the entire planet after they network. So we're going to say, don't use those. Okay. Or the word just, like I'm just following up, that makes it look very insignificant. So we're going to handle the call, what to say, what not to say, consultative sales techniques that we teach for networking and beyond. And then we're going to talk a little bit about just some communication skills stuff that really we think everybody should know, that's going to help you get in and out of conversations. Hey, you don't even have to use it for business. If you're at a party and you want to get out of that situation, we'll give you some soft skills to help you with that. So the whole program is really designed to help you all. We're trying to develop a program, Tony and I, that will help everybody, again, turn contacts into clients and use networking as a platform for doing that. Okay, so that's what we're hoping to do with everybody. I hope that makes sense. Tony, I'll give you back the mic, so to speak, and go from there.
Hey, Kirk, so let me ask you, one of the things that you and I talked about is, and we just talked about here on this webinar today is, we have our member directory that's a downloadable PDF. The members, the version they get with that has got a key contact for each company. And it's got the, individuals, their name, their phone number, their email address. Would one approach be to take those email addresses and then create an email blast to, announce yourself to the members that, what you're trying to do and to reach out? How effective is that approach to use?
Boy, you got to be careful, Tony. You got to be careful. If anybody's ever done that, you can be labeled and marked as somebody that is being pushy or and quite frankly, you may have a very horrendous response rate on something like that. However, there can be some things you can do with things like that. Email blasts are more, to me, a marketing effort than they are a sales effort. But there are some things, I don't want to discourage everybody from just not doing email blasts, but I got to tell you, done the wrong way, I think they're highly ineffective. The response rate is miserable. And I've even heard this from large companies. Unless you have some messaging that doesn't look like you're trying to just get into everybody's wallet or talk just about yourself. So there is effective use of that, but boy, I'm not really for it.
Okay. All right. Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
And Kirk, I think you did mention we're looking at a 3-part series. These would be about 90 minutes each, because we want to not burn everybody out on another virtual experience. But our plan is, and we're going to do a poll here. But our plan is, if there's interest, we probably launch that about in the second week or so of January. I think, Kirk, is what we talked about.
Yep.
Okay, so with that, I'm going to get into the first poll question here, and we'll launch the polling. But the question is going to be, is this training that you think we should continue down the line of developing this training to offer it to our members? So with that, I will start the poll. There we go. You should have that. We're going to go about for 30 or 40 seconds and let you go through those questions. The next one is, the next question you'll see on this is, would this kind of training be useful for you and others in your company? Often the C-suite individual is who joins the organization, but they may be sending out their business development folks, and everything is not about necessarily trying to get the deal. There are so many ways, so many things that you can learn from the audience, just getting experience in the industry, making other contacts. I'm having trouble with my IT provider, who provides the IT solutions for your business. There's a number of things, but we think this could be useful, and not everybody in the company are natural born networkers. And then if this is something that you think would be useful, would it be something that your company would be willing to utilize some of your training or discretionary dollars to have people attend the session? So with that, looks like the questions or the answers are slowing down. So we're going to end the poll. Thank you very much. This is helpful, and we'll kind of take that information and then use it as we continue developing this course. So with that, Kirk, thank you again.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Kevin Michaels. Kevin is on our board, has been from day one. And this is an individual, if you haven't met Kevin, I hope when you come to one of our events, Kevin's there, you'll have the opportunity to meet him. He's devoted his life to this, his education and his work experience, working in the industry, has a team of really, really talented folks. And they wake up every day thinking about aerospace, working with companies around the world. Kevin speaks all over the world to different companies. A lot of big companies, contact Kevin to help them work through different situations. And he and his team are been hard at it, as you can imagine, through COVID, collecting information and data of understanding what the impact is globally to the supply chain and to the OEMs. So Kevin, I'm going to turn it over to you to share some of the latest information that you and your team have been working on.
Tony, hi, thank you. So Tony, I think I need to get control from you with the screen.
How's that?
There we go, we got it. So I'll just call out the slides. So hi, good afternoon, everyone. So I think I've checked in every 3 or 4 months here throughout the pandemic, you know, with some of our thoughts, and appreciate the opportunity to talk to you again today. And what I wanted to talk about today is maybe an update of what's going on with COVID and what it means for air travel and production. Secondly, some thoughts on the aftermarket and what's happening. So on the production side, I mean, so I'm not going to go through the air travel statistics, but I think you know what they are. Air travel is down globally about 73% in terms of revenue passenger kilometers compared to last year. And approximately 40% of the world's jetliner fleet right now is parked. So 60% of the aircraft are in service, but airlines are flying these aircraft fewer hours. If you have an A320 that flies 7 banks a day or 6 banks a day, it's probably flying 4 banks a day right now. So the bottom line is that airlines are keeping more aircraft in service than they actually need, but they're doing that so they can avoid storage costs and the maintenance costs that come when you park an aircraft for an extended period of time. Now, in terms of production and the outlook, you know, we've had this incredible run for 15 years. And clearly this year is going to be the I think the Latin word is annus horribilis, with a horrible year. And you know, and it's a combination of the MAX production shutdown at the beginning of the year, and then now, you know, COVID. And so we're going to go from 1,900 air transport aircraft, these are turboprops, regional jets, twin aisles and single aisles, to less than 900 this year. And the most draconian cuts here are for Boeing, which is going to see its production absolutely hit the floor, tumble down under 200 units this year. So it's we've never seen this type of production cut in our history. We've had some nasty booms and busts in the past, but nothing that parallels this cut. Next page. So question we get a lot is, what does this mean for the supply chain? And I want to walk you through this. And what I'm showing is that on the left, this is the way we traditionally think about the aerospace supply chain. And we always hear the terms tier 1, tier 2, et cetera. And so notionally, there's 5 tiers. You have the OEMs, the engine and aircraft OEMs, tier 1 systems and aerostructures assembly suppliers, people that maybe make wings and fuselages like Spirit Aerosystems, people that make systems for aircraft like our AIAM members, you know, Liebherr and Eaton, as an example, GE Aviation. Tier 2 is components, so hydraulic pumps, that sort of thing, or sub-assemblies. Tier 3 are make-to-print suppliers, or job shops, as we call them. So they typically, you know, they don't have design IP. They're making parts, and there are thousands of these around the world, and many AIAM members are tier 3s. And then finally, at the tier 4 level, this is mill product, processing, forging, casting, that sort of thing. And so what we see happening in this crisis, and it's early days now, mind you, but we see OEMs and tier 1s spinning off and selling non-core and underperforming assets. You know, they have been, if anything, the OEMs have been busy vertically integrating in recent years. And it's not surprising, because production had been going up for 15 years and risk was really minimized. So why shouldn't I grab this profit pool instead of my supplier grabbing it? And you saw a lot of activity, you know, not only by Boeing and a lesser extent Airbus, but in the engine space, you've seen a fair bit of that as well. And now that we're in a time of excess capacity where the OEMs are reminded of the risk of down cycles, suddenly, you know, they're going to be slimming their assets down and shedding some of their non-core and underperforming assets. Now, I'll give you an example or two of that in a minute. Another big change, and this is a real challenging one, is the tier 3s. And I get asked a lot, who are the most vulnerable suppliers in the ecosystem today as a result of this crisis? And my answer is tier 3s that are supporting aerostructures, people that are cutting metal and making parts without IP. And it is, there's gonna be a lot of attrition here. It's gonna be a real challenge. I don't know the exact numbers, but there are estimates of 10 to 20% of tier threes could be consolidated. They could go away. Some of these are family owned, and maybe this pushes the owner to retirement. And the tier fours, if you go back a second, Tony, the tier fours at the bottom of the supply chain, or if you want to say upstream, these are people like Precision Cast Parts and Alcoa, and they've been busy vertically integrating in recent years. You've seen the mill product suppliers go downstream into machining, processing, and the like. Alcoa was a very famous example. And guess what? A lot of that has been unbundled. So you're going to see the fourth big change is new players moving in. Private equity is chomping at the bit. They have a lot of liquidity. I think a lot of the people, a lot of the sellers and a lot of the business owners now sense that maybe this isn't the best time to sell if you're dependent on the commercial aerospace world. Can I do better 6 months from now or a year from now when there's a lot more clarity on production rates, maybe when the vaccine is out and we're seeing recovery in air travel? But you will see that. I think you'll see public companies be involved in this, and also possibly governments. Maybe not so much in the US, but we could see that in Europe and in other parts of the world where national champions are at risk. Next slide. So we have Aerodynamic Advisory is in the midst of a poll of the North American supply chain to understand the impact of this pandemic and the COVID crisis on the outlook for suppliers. And many of you have participated, and I want to thank you for that. And we are, we're in the midst of this now. We probably have about another 3 weeks to go. So for those of you who haven't participated, I would encourage you to please contact me or Tony and we'll give you the link. But anyway, we have had 100 participants thus far in the survey. And one of the questions is, what's the impact on your revenue of COVID? In other words, how much lower will your revenue be compared to your original plan due to this crisis that we're in? And what I'm showing you here is the responses from Canadian suppliers, principally in Ontario and Quebec. So, our peer organizations, the Ontario Aerospace Council and Aero Montreal and Quebec have sent this out to their members, just as Tony has here in the Midwest. The Rockford Aerospace Alliance, Area Aerospace Alliance has also sent this out to their members. But what you see here is that in the Midwest US, I think this is kind of good news. It's that, it's bad news and good news. About a quarter of the participants expect their revenue to decline by 40% or more. So that is a huge challenge, right? If you compare this to what we're seeing in Canada and in other parts of the US, it's not as profound. What are the reasons for that? We don't have them yet. I have some hypotheses. I suspect that number one, here in the Midwest US and in Michigan, we have suppliers that are more diversified. Maybe they have automotive or other heavy industry business base. Number two, of course, here in the US, we have a strong defense industrial base. So we have suppliers that may be serving defense or business aviation, companies like RCO Engineering, AIAM member, which does a lot in business aviation. Well, it turns out that business aviation is actually hanging in there and doing relatively well right now. So we will continue to see what happens with this survey, and we'll be getting more results in the weeks ahead. We're really trying to target and bring in a lot more results from the left coast, California, Puget Sound, and so forth. And the industry associations out there have also signaled a willingness to participate. And the next question is, well, what types of suppliers are most impacted? Next page. So what we show here is we have broken the participants, given them the option to identify what type of supplier are you. And we show here, I'm not going to read all the categories, but it's everything from, aerostructures to engines and interiors to electrical, to things like metal processing and casting and forging. And I think the way to read this chart is the way I read it is I kind of look for everything red and below, as to where it's really, really nasty impacts. And what you see here is that, not surprising, and maybe kind of confirming my hypothesis, aerostructures is the most impacted of the supplier groups. Why is that? It's because aerostructures, of course, is very linked, profitability is very linked to capacity utilization and volume. So there's a massive difference between 80% utilization and 60%, as you all know much better than I do. Number two, there isn't an aftermarket in aerostructures. So when you make parts for, let's say, a Boeing or a Cessna, there isn't aftermarket demand for those parts. So the opportunity for aftermarket pricing opportunities kind of goes away. So some of the other areas impacted a lot, interiors, raw material mill products, probably not surprising there as well, and general machining and fabrication. Least impacted are things like avionics. And again, avionics, you have a robust aftermarket, you have a retrofit market, you have a big military and business aviation market. So there's a lot more diversity going on there. So you're not, companies like Collins Avionics and Honeywell and Garmin that make the avionics, they aren't going to be the ones hurting the most in this crisis. It's going to be those tier threes. And that's why we have an industry association. That's why you're part of AIAM. You've got to navigate through this crisis, through this unprecedented crisis. Next slide. And then for those of you on the MRO who focus on the aftermarket and maintenance, repair, and overhaul, this is our analysis of what's happening in the different activities. This is an index. If 100 is what the activity was pre-COVID, the world's airlines spend about 80 billion a year on maintenance. It's which activities are most impacted and which are least impacted. And the most impacted activities are engine maintenance and modifications, which includes interior modifications, avionics, passenger to freighter conversions, and painting. A lot of this is linked to airline discretionary spending. And guess what? The world's airlines are going to lose $80 billion in the second half of this year. To put it into context, the global airline industry is an $800 billion industry. The world's airlines are losing $80 billion in the last 6 months of this year, wiping out all the profits that they've made in the last 3 years. So they're very much in survival mode. The activities least impacted are airframe heavy maintenance. These are heavy checks and line maintenance, because these activities oftentimes are linked more to calendar than to utilization and the like. So it's going to be a U-shaped recovery in the aftermarket. I know there's been a lot of great news out there with vaccines. 2 candidates now with high early test results, but it's going to take 6 to 12 months to get these vaccines distributed. And then once they are distributed, and that's assuming that we get enough people to sign up and get vaccinated, and that's a whole nother story. We believe it'll take 18 to 24 months after that for air travel to return to normal. And I think the real important leading indicator to watch in all of this is airline profitability. If airlines aren't making money, they're not going to be ordering aircraft. They're not going to be engaging in maintenance. We need to get our airlines back to profitability. And it's going to be a really, really challenging winter for our airlines. I suspect there will probably be another government aid package to the airlines sometime this winter, because it's really hard to see a catalyst. Travel is always down in the winter anyway. And in the current environment, it's going to be especially challenging. But I do think, there will be robust recovery. We're going to have some great years ahead of us. It's just getting through this valley right now and getting back to normal. So those are my comments for today. And Tony, if there's a few minutes for questions, I'm happy to take them.
Sorry about that, Kevin. I need to unmute myself. Hey, Kevin, thanks a lot. This is really interesting. And I want to remind everybody, we've got just a couple minutes left on the call. There is a Q&A panel. If you got a question, please go ahead and submit it, and we'll do our best to get to it. Kevin, I do have a question for you. Through this whole COVID situation, we've heard about the parked aircraft that you referenced. And that in some cases, because the maintenance side of operating a fleet is so costly, that the airlines are using some of the parts, obviously, that are within the usable range off of that parked aircraft. Do you see the opportunity? So that's obviously going to be a big hit on the MRO side of the business. But when the industry returns to normal, pre-COVID, assuming that's what we call normal, and flights are starting to resume, that there could actually be a big upswing on the MRO side, because now you've got to take care of, you know, the aircraft that you may have taken a part off of, but also the operating fleet as well.
Yeah, if you go back one slide, and I see that we had a question as well from Jeff Nedwick at Composites One. I think it was not understanding how to read this slide. And so let me answer your question and answer his question.
Sure.
Again, this slide is indexed activity for maintenance, repair, and overhaul. So if pre-COVID last year, 100 is the activity, the way to read it is this year, if we look at total MRO, which is the red, MRO activity is down a little bit over 50% this year compared to last year. Next year, it will increase compared to this year. It'll probably be up 10 to 15%. And then from there, it's going to go into some really boom years. But we're in this big valley right now. Now, Tony, to your point, as we park and retire aircraft, as we engage in activity that can save us maintenance expenditures, like stealing good engines off a parked aircraft and installing them on aircraft that need an overhaul. We call that green time management. Some of that sort of stuff, that will happen. And that's one of the reasons why you see a big, robust recovery, you know, in the out years. You'll eventually have to pay some of that back. But having said that, and we think that the world's airlines are going to retire 1,400 aircraft this year out of a fleet of 30,000. 1,400 will be retired this year. We think next year it'll be 1,200. There is a supply-demand imbalance that has to get worked out, and it's going to get worked out through retirement, and it'll get worked out through operating the aircraft fewer hours and fewer cycles to conserve cash. And that's what airlines are doing right now. But yeah, there will be payback later on. And I suspect that 2 years from now, we'll probably get caught without enough capacity in certain areas. The pendulum's going to swing back the other way. And a lot of these MROs, which are downsizing now, losing some of their key employees, you know, and that's, I think one of the biggest things I fear is human capital. Is some of these employees in their retirement age, will they come back, or are they gone for good? And then when times get busy, who do you hire and who do you train? Mm-hmm. And that's going to be a real challenge.
Kevin, I'm going to go back and answer a question on a previous part of the presentation before yours, and then we do have a couple other questions here for you as well. On the part of the presentation where we talked about doing the web scraping for pulling in the open positions, Rob Cook up at Calumet Electronics asked how often we're going to do the scrape. And Rob, we're still working on that. It'll probably be a once a week or a once every other week scrape. We're just going to kind of get into it and then see what kind of results we're finding. But we can dial that in to whatever frequency we think is necessary. So that'd be flexible. But right now we're thinking in the 1 to 2 week time period. Kevin, on another question from Dan Weinman in Rochester Hills is, you know, wanting to know what the impact would be for landing gear maintenance companies. Are they likely to, you know, be hit by a sales decline? Or are they more isolated because of, you know, the cycles of, you know, the landing gear and the required maintenance?
Landing gear maintenance companies?
Yeah.
So this is interesting. You know, one of our member companies, Leap Hair, has a big landing gear shop in Saline, you know, and it turns out they're actually pretty busy right now, but it's because they depend on the E-Jet, you know, for a lot of their maintenance. And one of the things that's happened in this crisis is airlines have tried to conserve cash. They're down gauging. In other words, they're going to smaller aircraft for the same flight. They're doing that because traffic is thin and they want the lowest trip cost, if possible. So now they're, you know, going from 777s to 787s and A350s. In some cases, they're going from A320s and 737s to regional jets, you know, and so they're trying to find the smallest aircraft that they can fly en route, and that's helped E-Jets quite a bit. Now, on landing gear, The question, it depends on what type of landing gear you're overhauling. If you're overhauling landing gear in some of the losing aircraft, A340s, 777s, A330s, A380s, you're going to be hurting right now. And a lot of those are getting parted out. And you can use green time landing gear to substitute for a landing gear overhaul. In fact, United Airlines is going to be doing that. However, if you're on some of these winning aircraft from the down gauging, like the E-Jet, for example, then you might actually see a fair bit of business, and the risk of that happening is less. So it really all depends on which aircraft model you're on. One other point I'll make too is, since we're talking commercial here, and I don't want to be Debbie Downer, I'm just trying to tell you what I think you need to hear here, but on the business aviation side, it went through a V just like the airline world did, and guess what? It's come back almost to where it is pre-COVID flights. In the US right now, the flight activity for business jets is very close to what it was pre-COVID. For smaller cabin aircraft, it is caught up. For larger cabin aircraft where you're flying across the ocean or long haul, it's not as caught up because of the travel restrictions. But business aviation has seen a very sharp recovery. And actually, there's an argument to be made that this could actually benefit business aviation in the long run, because it reminds high net worth individuals and executives that the benefit of business aviation isn't just time savings. It isn't just physical security, but it could also be your health, in breathing the air in the cabin, let's say. So we'll see if that comes true.
Okay, one last question, Kevin, and this pertains to something we showed earlier in the presentation. And this comes from Russ, and Russ was asking about is there a fee associated with using the service, the HR staffing companies that I had shown previously? Now, both these companies do have a fee associated with it, but your questions are free. So you can certainly, if you see a rising talent, that somebody that it looks like it might be a fit for your organization, you can inquire about that. There is no charge, obviously, for asking those questions, but if you want to engage them in the service, and I do know that there are some preferred rates for the AIAM members on this. But there would be a fee, obviously, because that is the line of work that they're in. Both of these, though, I know, and they're exceptional companies and provide a really, really good service. Okay, well, we are just a few minutes over. I'm going to go ahead and end it. And boy, this is great. I really appreciate everybody's time today. Kevin, we're going to check back with you in 3 or 4 weeks when you've got the survey done. I think that's something that people will be very interested to see more of a full expansive, answers, and unpack that a bit to understand what's going on. So thank you very much, Kevin. Appreciate your time. Kirk, same thing. Thank you for your time. Appreciate everybody. We'll be back sometime soon with more information. Thanks a lot. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.